Welcome to Front Office Pros. We are a week away from the NFL draft, and landing spots for these prospects will be a huge factor in how successful they will be early on in their career. For this video, we will be discussing the most ideal, realistic landing spots for the top 5 wide receiver prospects. Before we get started, we are a new channel, so if you enjoy this content, we ask you to smash that like button to show your support.
Hike!
Jaxson Smith-Njigba is widely considered the best wide receiver of this wide receiver class, and could see his name called early on night one. Joe, which NFL team do you think is the most ideal and realistic landing spot for wide receiver Jaxson Smith-Njigba?
Yeah, I think he'd be a good fit with the Houston Texans. They traded away Brandon Cooks. They got Nico Collins there. They really need, more playmakers and more wide receivers on the offense and need somebody that they can potentially build the offense around. And I think Jaxson Smith-Njigba would be the perfect player to do that. And I also really think it'd be fun if, I know it's up in the air whether or not to take quarterback at 2, but if they take CJ Stroud at 2 and take Jaxson Smith-Njigba at 12, pair them up and gets to play with his college team, and I think that'd be really fun.
Yeah, for me, I actually think his best landing spot is the Green Bay Packers. They already have a deep vertical threat in Christian Watson to stretch the field. Now you bring in a guy like Jaxson Smith-Njigba, who's a crisp route runner. He'll really be able to maximize the slot. They lost Allen Lazard, so I feel like they don't have a lot of talent in that receiver room, and they want Jordan Love to succeed. I know they haven't drafted a first-round receiver in ages, but I think this is the time where they have to change that.
You think so, even though they got Romeo Doubs as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think he was okay, but you can't just run an offense with Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson. I think they can add another skill player, and I think Smith-Njigba would do pretty well there.
He definitely could. I mean, Smith-Njigba, he's the most crisp route runner in the draft, and, he's not the fleetest of foot, but just he's such a smooth player and smooth route runner. But, as you mentioned, I just don't see the Packers actually spending a first-round pick for a wide receiver. But, maybe they'll try to do right by Jordan Love, and unlike they did with Rodgers, maybe they learn from their past mistakes.
Jordan Addison has had the privilege of having former first-round pick Kenny Pickett and Caleb Williams as his quarterbacks in college. Now he's heading to the draft. And Joe, which NFL team do you think is the most ideal and realistic landing spot for wide receiver Jordan Addison?
Yeah, I think he'd be a good fit with the New Orleans Saints. They bring over Derek Carr. Other than having Olave and Quentin Johnston on the offense, there really isn't much there. I know they have Michael Thomas as well. He's just not readily available. He just always seems to be injured. And Derek Carr is a guy who's had some success with some sort of receivers. Him and Hunter Renfrow had a great connection in Las Vegas. And, I think they could use Addison in the slot there and kind of the underneath routes, and Carr could definitely manipulate it. And I think he'd be a good fit there.
Yeah, I thought about the Saints as well, but I went with the Minnesota Vikings. After Adam Thielen is no longer with the roster, they just have Justin Jefferson and KJ Osborne. And what I like about him going to Minnesota, he doesn't have to be the guy. I don't know if he can be the guy on a team. They already have Justin Jefferson there, who is the best receiver in football. So Jefferson's going to create matchup problems, which will allow Addison to really be able to get free and open. He's a great route runner. He's not very good in contested catches. Don't think he'll need to, though, because he won't have to deal with double coverage because Jefferson's there. So I think he's more of a natural hands catcher. So I think him going to Minnesota is a great fit. He has the ability to line up outside and inside, and they need wide receiver help pretty desperately because Jefferson, although he's done a great job handling the load, he could definitely use some help.
Yeah, I think that fit makes a lot of sense. It'd be they got TJ Hawkinson as well to kind of take away the space in the middle of the field as well. And, Addison would make a lot of sense with Minnesota as well. It'd be an intriguing option for him for sure.
Quentin Johnston might be one of the most hotly debated prospects in this wide receiver class, and many wonder if he will be drafted in the first round at all. So, Joe, which NFL team do you think is the most ideal and realistic landing spot for wide receiver Quentin Johnston?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think he definitely has a chance to be a first-round receiver. I think the talent is there. I know the one knock against him is, he had a bad national championship game against Georgia, but they really, formatted their defense to take him away, and, they succeeded, but they had a ton of talent on the defensive side. But, I think it'd be interesting going to the Baltimore Ravens. All this, still got the Lamar Jackson saga going on. They did bring Odell Beckham Jr. So at the end of the day, I think Lamar Jackson's coming back to the Baltimore Ravens, and, why not give him another weapon like Quentin Johnston to pair him up along with Odell Beckham Jr. I know they've got Bateman, who they took as well. But I think this would allow him, I don't think he's really an outside guy. This would kind of allow him to go into that slot role. And then you can have Quentin Johnston and Odell Beckham Jr. on the outside. And then, with the new offensive coordinator, they're potentially going to have a new philosophy and change up the roster a little bit. I don't expect them to be as run heavy. So maybe they start spreading the ball around, and Quentin Johnston with Baltimore would be exciting.
Yeah, Quentin Johnston's definitely a very interesting evaluation. I have his best fit being the New York Giants. And I think the reason for me is, that wide receiver room is devoid of talent. To me, I think he projects to be more of an outside the numbers type of receiver. He's not going to be a guy who gets used inside and outside. So I think it gives them a new dimension to that Giants offense. Gives Daniel Jones a red zone target. He's a big-bodied, big-framed receiver. Crazy. He's so athletic. You would think that because of his frame, he could just go up and get it. But he body catches a lot, and that's one of the reason why people are kind of down on him. He does this move where he catches like on a hitch route, and then he just spins around, and then he just goes, for a ton of yards. So he's great yard after the catch. You would think with that frame, he'd be able to really just high point the ball. So he's a very interesting prospect. I don't know what to think of him, but I think at the end of the day, he would get a lot of targets and be a good target for Daniel Jones. So I think it's a good offense for him.
Yeah, I think that's something he could also, work on, and with the right wide receiver coaching, start to learn how to high point the ball better and actually use your hands instead of letting it into your chest and then essentially allowing a defender to make a play on the ball. But definitely Giants would be an interesting spot. I do think they're going to address the wide receiver spot, in the draft at some point. There's no way they can just basically bring back all the wide receivers they had last year and expect different results there. And if they really want Daniel Jones to succeed, bringing in a guy like Quentin Johnston would make a lot of sense.
Zay Flowers has been a productive player out of Boston College and is a senior coming into the draft, which is rare. Usually we see underclassmen coming into the draft. So, Joe, with that said, which NFL team do you think is the most ideal and realistic landing spot for wide receiver Zay Flowers?
Yeah, I think it'd be really fun if Zay Flowers ends up with the Buffalo Bills, officially take over that slot role. Isaiah McKenzie is no longer there. And this guy is, similar to Isaiah McKenzie. He's definitely not the biggest guy. He's only 5'9", but he's got the quickness and the speed to really play out of the slot. And other than, Diggs, Gabe Davis, on the Bills offense, they need somebody to be able to step up the slot. Not sure that, Clear Shakir is going to be able to be that guy to step up into that slot role, maybe as the Bills hoped when they drafted him last year. I just think with his athleticism and his ability to play the slot just really would unlock the Bills offense.
Yeah, I agree with you entirely. This is the first, fit that you and I agree on. But I also think Zay Flowers going to the Bills is a great fit. And as a Bills fan, I'd love to have him. Really like Zay Flowers. His run after the catch ability is elite. And it's something the Bills just simply don't have. Like you said, he can play in the slot. I know he's undersized, but I think his quickness is just dynamic. He plays tough. And, the Bills need an additional wide receiver. We saw last year that Diggs and Gabe Davis just won't cut it. Obviously, Diggs is an unbelievable player. And I like Davis too. I think he's good as well. But I just don't think Davis can be that wide receiver 2 guy. I think he's a complementary piece for an offense, but I think they need something else on top of it, and that's where Zay Flowers would come in.
Yeah, there's a reason why they keep bringing back Beasley to play the slot. They desperately need somebody to step up in that role, and, Zay Flowers is definitely way more dynamic and can get open for sure.
Jalin Hyatt broke out this past season for the Tennessee Volunteers. He accumulated 67 receptions for 1,267 yards and a whopping 15 touchdowns Joe, which NFL team do you think is the most ideal and realistic landing spot for wide receiver Jalin Hyatt?
Yeah, I slotted Hyatt going to the Atlanta Falcons. The team that desperately needs some help on the offensive side with some playmakers. They've got Kyle Pitts and Drake London, but definitely need a better supporting cast there. They have a pretty solid run game. And this guy, I mean, he's got that elite speed. And I don't know, you watch the tape and he's just blowing by guys, taking that top off the defense. And he's definitely special with that. So I just think it would add another dimension to the Falcons offense.
Yeah, I had a little bit of a hard time trying to find the right spot for him because there are some teams that are kind of devoid of talent at receiver, but I didn't know if it would actually benefit him to go to those teams, a la like a Houston Texans, because who knows who's throwing him the ball. So I actually went with the New York Jets. I think Hyatt could go in the second round. When he was in the Tennessee offense, his routes were very limited. He truly is a vertical threat type of receiver that's going to take the top off the defense. So which I totally expect that he will, if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Jets, Aaron Rodgers is one of the best deep balls. And to me, he would bring a new element to that offense. I know they have McCole Hardman and they brought in Allen Lazard, but I'm not too crazy or excited about those guys. You got Garrett Wilson, now add Hyatt, and he can just, like I said, blow the top off the defense. I think he could be a really good fit for the Jets.
Yeah, it definitely would be interesting. You're not wrong with Aaron Rodgers and his ability to throw the deep ball. Definitely could get it to him, and it would actually make a really exciting Jets offense, I think, as well.
Well, we saw what he was able to do with Christian Watson. I mean,
Right.
coming out of I believe a Division III school, I believe it was North Dakota State. I want to say same college that Trey Lance came out of, and so there were questions as to how good Watson could be and how developed his route tree and everything else. So now Hyatt plays in Division I with Tennessee, but some of the same criticisms about can he, expand the route tree and not just be a vertical threat.
Yeah, I think he can. I know I did read, people are calling him the one trick pony because that's the only thing that he's got. But, at the end of the day, that one trick is pretty darn good, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, that makes me a little bit nervous, honestly. Maybe some people wouldn't be as concerned about, but from a dynasty perspective, knowing that you might be just a one trick pony, it could take a while for him to develop.
Yeah, like you mentioned too, though, that could have just been the Tennessee offense limiting him. He could actually have more of a route tree. We'll just really have to see what happens when he gets on an NFL team, gets a training camp, and they install some offenses and works with somebody, and he could definitely develop more of the route tree.
So that concludes our best rookie wide receiver landing spots for the top 5 wide receiver prospects in the 2023 NFL Draft. If you enjoyed this content, we ask you to please like this video to show your support for our channel. Comment below on which landing spot is best for these 5 rookie wide receiver prospects, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We also recently have joined Apple and Spotify podcasts. You can follow us there as well. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.